and we pray for wisdom and strength. Lord, please help me to move slow as I maintain the inside of the eye. Lord, please keep the mites, the viruses, the moths, and those war-footed animals out of the eye. Lord, give me the wisdom I need to adequately assess situations and treat them wisely. In Jesus' name, your faithful beekeeper.
Cool prayer, thank you. All right, we're going to start as we normally do with our speaker, and then we'll move into our business. Tonight's speaker is going to be Christian Covey, talking to us about hazards in beekeeping and how we can avoid those. So if you give me just a second to switch over our PowerPoint presentations here, we can start with that. Sorry, that's what made us think about it, right? We were writing it since 8 months ago. Do you need notes? Do you have notes?
I don't think I've got notes.
Okay, that's easier if you don't. All right. Yes. After my, yep. There you go. Okay.
Alrighty, thank you all so much. My name is Christian Covey. I'm a West Virginia apprentice beekeeper. I happen to work in safety, so I decided to put together just a little talk on things that I've noticed and things that I've experienced on trying to keep my bees and while doing it being safe, because I've gotten myself into some pretty interesting situations already. So since I haven't been keeping bees that long, I feel like it's a good thing to educate everyone about. Like I said, just general ways that you can reduce your risk apart from what you already kind of go in expecting, right? Like everyone assumes stings is the worst thing that we're going to encounter, but that's not necessarily always true. So with that, I'm going to try to go fast so that I don't get long-winded and bore you to death. And then everybody likes to listen to safety. So here we go. All right, is beekeeping risky? So there are a couple different types of hazard kind of categories that I put together to talk about the different ones that you're going to encounter. So we've got 5 categories: biological. Those are hazards that are coming from a living organism, something that you're going to encounter that's alive. Does that make sense? Then we have our physical, mechanical hazards. Those are our classic things that are going to involve any sort of physical or mechanical process that can harm you or your body. Environmental hazards, those are things coming from the external environment that are going to negatively impact you in some way. Chemical hazards, we all know those. It's just a simple, classic, any chemical that you're going to use in beekeeping, being safe with that. And then there's some mental hazards, psychological hazards that can affect you in the long term if you don't kind of work on the sort of mentality of being a beekeeper. All right, so is beekeeping risky part 2. So this is how I'm going to go about telling you how to be safer. This is the OSHA hierarchy of controls. It's just a layered system of how you can go about eliminating a hazard or a risk. So you start with level 1, because that's the most effective, and then all the way down to the bottom we've got number 5. That's considered our last resort or least protective or effective measure. It's funny because as beekeepers, we all know we're going to end up wearing a suit or a bill, right? So we already jump right down to that last resort category from the get-go. So you're already in that frame of mindset for understanding safety, but there's some other things that we can do. Okay, biological hazards. We all know, obviously, our favorite biological hazard right there. From the get-go, you are going to get stung, or your chances of being stung are extremely high compared to the average person. Apart from that, I put it as just insect bites and stings because, unfortunately, as much fun as it is to play in the bees, other things like to play in the bees as well with us, such as yellow jackets, horseflies, all kinds of different insects and critters like to sneak up on you while you're tending your beehives, so you can sustain some other types of stings and other types of bites than what you would assume you're going to get from a honeybee. Obviously, that can cause some serious allergic reactions, so that's kind of what makes that pretty hazardous. Apart from that, we have some other allergy symptoms as hazards. You're going to be exposed to lots of things because you're outside. Lots of people run into poison ivy, that's a classic one. But also you're going to be exposed sort of disproportionately to extra pollen, right? The bees are bringing in pollen at all times. So if there's a specific type of pollen you might be allergic to, very seriously allergic to, you might want to consider it. You know, if you can figure out if your bees are maybe working at that time of the year or what time that blooms, you might have to kind of take extra precautions, such as, you know, maybe you're prescribed antihistamine, that type of thing. And then moving on down, we have some other hazards such as ants, bears, snakes, spiders, and ticks. And then I'm going to go through on the next slide the hierarchy, and we'll kind of work through how we're going to solve all of those. All right, elimination. So that's not really practical in this instance because you can't take bees out of beekeeping, right? So there's not really a way that we can do that. So we're going to move down to our next layer, and that's substitution. So we want to substitute something in that's less hazardous. That's what the whole concept of substitution is. You want to use something that's going to be gentler on you in the long run. So that's why I said use and breed gentle bees. If you can get bees that are local, that they can be vouched for, or maybe you pick a breed that's notoriously docile, that's going to be in your favor. This is why I think why a lot of people emphasize not importing a lot of genetics from warmer regions, because they tend to have behaviors that are pretty aggressive, just because they have a higher incidence of that subtype of bee that is pretty aggressive. Moving on down again, so engineering. This is things that we can, tools or devices that we can put in place that are going to help us reduce our risk. So we've got a smoker and put sugar soaker on there because these are kind of the only tools that you can really actually directly use on the bees to stop them from getting at you. So obviously our smoker is our best friend at, you know, kind of warding them off and pacifying them, confusing them. The sugar soaker I put on there just for fun because I feel like it can be useful sometimes. You know, if you sense that your bees are starting to get really agitated based on, you know, you working on them, you can quickly mist them with a little bit of sugar, and it minimizes the risk that they're even going to be able to fly because it lightly wets their wings, and they kind of have to solve that before they can solve you. So I just added that on there. Level 4, administrative. So these are things where we're changing the way that we work. You're either changing the behavior, you're changing the way the process is done. How we're going to do that? So worker hives during calm weather and from behind the hive. That's obviously applying to bee stings. Don't stand right in front of your beehive. If you notice, you end up getting bumped a lot of times. They might not outright sting you right away, but every time you get bumped, there's a chance that they're going to accidentally sting you. So that's just a general tip. It's not a hard and fast rule. Carry your EpiPen and Benadryl. That's for our allergic reactions. If you know that you have serious allergies, obviously you want to make sure you're carrying your first aid, like your Benadryl or your EpiPen if you do have one. Always just a good rule, don't go in there without it, because it's just an administrative control. You can always guarantee that if you do sustain a sting and it causes that severe reaction, you do have something that can help you. And then buddy up, again, a behavioral modification. It's always nice to work with someone else. If something happens to you while you're in your bees and you're all by yourself, that's a pretty rough situation to be in. So either buddy up and work with someone, or always let someone know that you're going in your bees. Just because after a while, you know, it's nice if someone comes to check on you, especially if something's happened. And then level 5, that's our last resort, but it's funny because it's the thing that we're known for the most when everybody sees you working on the side of the road trying to catch a swarm. They see that big white suit and they're just like, oh my gosh, is it hazmat? No, it's just me catching a swarm. So this is our PPE layer. You want your full suit if you want to wear a full suit, emphasis on gloves and veil, and then proper footwear. This can be important because of that risk of, so this is a newer hazard that I actually kind of thought about earlier. We've had some records just over this past year because we had a pretty dry drought. So snakes became an issue, copperheads specifically. So proper footwear, maybe wearing jeans or thicker pants can be helpful for that regard as well, apart from obviously helping you with the bees. So they kind of have that twofold effect. Okay, physical hazards. Like I said, these are hazards that are at a risk of some sort of either mechanical process that's going to cause you to injure your body. This is what we're thinking about, like cuts, scrapes, lifting injuries from mishandling your equipment, lifting poorly, burns. Burns are actually one of the most common injuries reported in agricultural data, and since beekeeping falls under agriculture, it's a pretty it's considered a higher risk area. It's got some, working with any type of organism or working with lots of equipment as we do in beekeeping. It tends to be a little high risk, and from that, we oftentimes neglect our smoker or accidentally burn ourselves. So that's actually, when I was reviewing the data to kind of put this presentation together, there's not a lot of raw beekeeper data, especially not for hobbyist level. So I kind of had to default to commercial beekeepers and look at agricultural data to kind of make those conclusions. So just from like the generalized, working in agriculture, you're already at an elevated risk compared to most other fields. And then you add something like, obviously we're using a stinging insect, you have to use fire. It just adds up to make it a riskier sort of hobby. So, like I said, burns are way up there on the list. So, fire from your smoker, you can accidentally start a fire. That can be just a physical hazard in general because it's an immediate danger to your health and safety. Apart from completely, you could burn up your entire apiary. And we have seen stories of that in the past couple of years of accidental sparking, causing entire apiaries to be burned down. So make sure we're practicing good smoker safety there. Eye injuries from your aggressive bees, this is probably always where I fail, right? And branches during inspections. I can't actually tell you how many times I've almost jabbed myself just walking because my veil actually reduces my visibility, and then I end up walking into a tree branch that I didn't pay attention to, even though I've walked past that tree 100 times at this point. Falls from heights. This is a personal favorite because it almost got me. So this is a really, I'll tell you a cute little story about this here shortly. But basically, falls from heights, obviously very deadly if you land the wrong way. And oftentimes we find ourselves as beekeepers in situations where we're trying to catch a swarm that's really high up and we're overextending ourselves. Removals, this is kind of, I guess I've almost lost it this one twice. Removals can also be kind of dangerous because of where the bees tend to, obviously occupy a dwelling or a wall. Sometimes that can be pretty high up, and I've almost met that one too. So again, falls from heights is pretty high on the list as well. And then trips and slips, due to low visibility, again, you're wearing a veil, you're wearing all kinds of PPE that kind of makes you encumbered. So that's another pretty prominent physical hazard. So how are we going to tackle these? So elimination, some of these, I guess I should have disclaimed that these are not hard and fast rules or hard and fast categories. I kind of categorize them how I encountered them. So poetic license, if you will. I'm always willing to entertain your argument if you think it should be somewhere else. But anyway, so elimination, it's hard to really, again, eliminate stuff. But one thing that we can do is, I think this one actually should have been under substitution, but like I said, it wasn't a hard and fast rule, so bear with me. Use smaller boxes. So physical hazard of the boxes and equipment is they're heavy, right? And the bigger they are, the heavier they get. So if you use a smaller box, you're eliminating the chance that you're not going to be able to sustain that load. I think in work we recommend no more than 25 pounds over your shoulder height. So you can imagine using a smaller box that might put you under that threshold, especially when you're carrying it at your center of gravity. So use smaller boxes, and then remove debris and obstacles. Again, physical hazard, tripping and slipping and falling, branches. If you are good with landscaping, definitely take out anything in your apiary that might pose a physical tripping hazard, poking hazard, anything like that you can get rid of. I definitely recommend it. Substitution, like I said, I probably could have fit smaller boxes under there, but like I said, it was kind of between the two, so I just thought that one light. Engineering, so again, this is our devices or our tools that are going to minimize our risk. It's not going to completely eliminate it, but so engineering tools here that we can have are elevated hive stands. It's going to bring those hives up so that you aren't bending as much. These musculoskeletal disorders are kind of what we're worried about because of excess repeated movements. The more you have to bend down and the more often you have to bend down, the greater chance that you're going to obviously do something to either your musculoskeletal system. So using higher hive stands can prevent that needing to bend and lift arbitrary and heavy lifts. Level ground, that one helps with our tripping and slipping hazard. It's easy to walk on a flat surface. It's not so easy to walk on anything that's like mine here, which is on him. Lift assist, so use, actually I know a gentleman in the eastern part of the state, he uses an electronic hive lift. So it's kind of like a dolly that helps you grasp and lift your hive so you don't have to bear all that weight on your back. Again, reducing our risk because you're not the object that's actually exerting the force, and it's putting it in a controllable method for you. So That's really, really helpful. Personal favorite, my pole bucket. So it's basically just a bucket screwed on the end of a painter's pole. I kind of made it myself actually out of there's like those water jugs that you see at Walmart, the blue water jugs. I basically cut the bottom off one of those and stuck the neck of it on the painter's pole and screwed it on. And so when I have a hive swarm and it's really high up and I can't get to it and I just can't tell myself no, this gives me an extra little bit of leeway, because as my two beekeepers in crime over here can attest, I've almost wiped myself out more than once. And it was because I got too eager and I put myself at risk for a fall from heights. And that's exactly what happened. I left my props at home. I was gonna bring my pole bucket with me. And then I was gonna bring the sort of, the culprit, which was the top of my pear tree, which was ever so tempting for me to climb up on and try to catch my swarm until I fell about 10 feet. And so I got really lucky. I didn't, obviously I'm not dead. I hope none of us, we're all in a sorry state. But yeah, so definitely don't get overeager like I did, because I didn't think about my safety and I didn't think about the tools that I had at my disposal that could have made my job easier. And so I definitely met the ground pretty hard. If I'd had my pole bucket there handy, it probably wouldn't have been nearly as hard. But anyway, long story short, I cut the top of my pear tree off, and after I fell 10 feet, and it was just a great time for everyone. You know, my pear tree's not happy, I'm not happy, my bees aren't happy. So always think about your safety. No swarm is worth your life. I have learned that lesson. And then I did get the swarm though. So anyway, they actually built some comb on the pear tree top, because I just sat it down in a box right after it happened, because I was so mad. And I came back the next day and they had actually incorporated the top of the pear tree into the top of the frames, and they built comb. So I kept it, and it's like a little show and tell for me, but of course I forgot it, or you guys aren't going to believe me. He's making that up. All right, anyway, moving on. Fire safe bucket. Yes, again, our fire safety is really important. We use one of those, it's like a steel like trash can. What is it? It's like a little, it's got a handle on it so you can carry it with you. It's really cute. It fits a smoker perfectly in it. Always put your smoker back in that. If you're, obviously if you have to move or travel to your apiary and you have to take your smoker with you, I like to use it when I'm in the apiary. If I have an extra hand, just carry it out and keep putting it back in there. That way I don't have to worry about it sparking the grass. I don't have to worry about it falling over. It's a general good tool. Other than that, okay, moving on to administrative. So again, our behaviors, what are we gonna change for our processes? So teamwork makes the dream work. Change the process. If you have somebody helping you lift, you're always doing half the weight, half the work. So that's great, because you're reducing that burden on your muscles. And again, you're solving that first issue where you're not gonna be alone. So next, lifting technique. Use proper lifting technique. I know we all know this. Beekeeping is hard, back-breaking work. You gotta make sure you're lifting with your knees. It's easier said than done. It's not fun, and half the time you can't get it in the right shape anyway, because they're kind of awkward to hold. So just a general tip, obviously, it's not gonna solve all your problems. Tidy work site. Beekeeping is pretty equipment intensive in my experience. You always need an extra box. You always need an extra something with you. I have a little hive stand that I built, and even it is an extra piece of something, right? That if I forget that it's there, it can become a hazard and I can trip over it. So kind of exercising good work site behaviors, like always keeping your things in the same place, always remembering that, even if it's some sort of routine that you have to get into, like I always keep my spare box to my right. I never keep it behind me. I never keep it someplace, because once you're in that veil, your visibility is down, and then the last thing you need to be doing is tripping over something while in your full suit and around a bunch of bees. So just a general tip again. And then ladder safety. This is really important. This is leading back to the pole bucket story. I was on a ladder. So apart from the fact that I was trying to get this swarm that was about 10 feet up in a pear tree, I was standing on a ladder. I didn't have proper footwear on because I was wearing Crocs at the time. I just really was not about my safety that day. So make sure if you do use a ladder, there's actually an app for ladder safety. I'm not sure how much longer it'll be functioning, but it is a really good app, and it'll tell you whether or not your angle is good, and it has a lot of really good information on there just about ladder safety in general. I was unfortunately on a hill and my ladder it was just a mess, like I said. I was not concerned with my safety that day, I wanted that swarm. So make sure you employ every tool that you can, including changing your behaviors. Obviously, know how to set your ladder up properly and don't wear Crocs up a ladder. Level 5, again, our personal protective equipment. What are we gonna wear or put on ourselves that's gonna help us reduce some of these risks? Again, gloves can be really helpful. If you're dealing with the gloves on there, let me get back. Oh, I think I put gloves on there because you can also get burned while you're doing a lot of your wax rendering. Or us beekeepers like to reuse as much as we can. I know we all love our wax. Melting wax is pretty hot. I had a coworker, she literally got it in her entire hand, covered in wax, hot wax, and it was like almost 30-degree burns. The tip from the safety office was, why weren't you wearing gloves? Because even if you had been wearing a nitrile glove, you could have quickly mitigated some of that damage. You might not have gotten it all, but I'd rather have a little patch of skin burn than my entire hand burned, right? So again, it's just helping us reduce that risk. It's not a solve all. Support belt for that back-breaking work. Again, if you need, buy support belt, support braces, appropriate footwear again. Really important to keep us from tripping. And then a veil. You can tell I've given this talk so many times. I'm not sure why veil is on there. I think I may have put that on there because you could use an alternate veil. I guess your veil could help prevent eye injuries. I think I put veil because I was thinking of using a veil that had better visibility. That way you're more aware of your surroundings while you're in your bees. It's really difficult. I've had veils that it felt like you were looking through the tiniest little patch. I've had veils that had much better panoramic sort of vision, but it definitely helps if you can see where you're going. All right, sorry, I'm starting to get a little long-winded, so I'll try to get faster. Environmental hazards. So these are hazards that are coming from just our generalized environment while we're out in the bees. Heat stress and dehydration. Obviously, we have to wear a lot of PPE when we're in the bees, and we do that when it's some of the hottest times of the year. Do not neglect your heat stress and dehydration signs. They can be life-saving if you heed your body's signals. You kind of have to be willing to recognize that, right? And I know when we're in our bees, we don't like to kind of stop and think, oh, maybe I should take a 5-minute break. Exposure to extreme weather, again, we're outside, right? This is an agricultural field, we're outside all the time in our bees. We can't really do it inside, or at least not in a pretty repeatable method. We might have a hive that's got a viewing window or inside of a building, but for most of us, we're out in the elements. So watch out for extreme sun, wind. Obviously, we're really versed after that last meeting where that extreme storm kind of blew through here. So we know to expect the worst, but keep your eye on the weather. Obviously, heed any sort of warnings that you get from your local weather service. Slip, trips, and falls again. Obviously, you're outside. It's the terrain can either be really treacherous, or if you've got a really nice apiary, maybe it's nice and smooth, but mine's not, so I definitely have to heed my terrain when I'm out there. And then vehicle risks during transport of bees. This was something I kind of randomly put on there in class because I didn't really know where it fit. It was just one of those gray areas. But apart from obviously it's a risk when you drive a car these days regardless, but something happening while you're transporting the bees can be pretty difficult to deal with. So that's why that one's on there. And how are we going to control the bees? Okay, so what are we going to eliminate? So the heat stress, to avoid that completely, just don't work your bees during the hottest part of the day. If you know it's going to be 90 plus degrees, 100% humidity, get in those bees early or get in those bees late. Avoid or completely eliminate that critical period where you're at risk of overheating. Substitute, all right, so we're going to substitute in some breathable PPE. They make all kinds of different suits these days that have varying degrees of ventilation, advertised ventilation, I should say. So definitely think about maybe getting a different suit if you've noticed yours really builds up the heat. Engineering, so here's where we're going to maybe build some shade, maybe if you know you're gonna be in your bees a lot and you have the ability, if you can build a little shelter where you can just sit down and enjoy the shade for a few minutes in between inspections, really important to think about that. Personal cooling fan and mister. I've seen some beekeepers that have told me that when they're in their bees, they wear one of those really cool, like, I don't know, when we were kids, it was like space age looking, but it's like a neck personal cooler, and it's got like all the bells and whistles. It's blowing like nice cool air on them, it mists them every once in a while. So I've really thought about investing in one of those for myself, just because it tends to be really, really hot when we're in the bees. Administrative, so this is where obviously our behavior is really important. We're gonna have to change our schedule when we're in the bees. I know sometimes you're like, I've got an hour to get in my bees and I've got to get through 3 hives, or however it kind of shakes out for your operation. But it's important to schedule your breaks in there. The last thing you want to do is fall over because you decided to go a little too hard because you thought you could get through it, and then you get too hot and you feel that cold trickle down your spine, or you start to experience heat stress or heat exhaustion. So make sure that not only are you taking those breaks, but every time you take a break, you're hydrating yourself. I don't know how many of you can attest that when you're leaning over the hive and the sweat is dripping through your veil, you need to be replenishing that moisture. You're definitely going to run yourself down. PPE, so light colored PPE, obviously most of us know beekeepers are a fan of white PPE for a reason. It does not heat up near as much as the darker colors. And then I considered sunscreen and sunglasses an option too, just because we are out in the elements. I have gotten sunburned while I've been tending my bees, and the more breathable your PPE goes, it seems like the less UV protection you get. So I've actually gotten some pretty interesting patterning on the different arms and necks and faces, just based on how thin my PPE was, because I elected for breathability over obviously UV protection. So consider some sunscreen and some sunglasses if those tend to bother you. All right, chemical hazards. So obviously we know about chemicals, and we all thought it was cool when science class growing up. We're going to mix them all together, right, and make it do something interesting. But the chemicals that we're going to experience in the bee are nice fun. Obviously we have to use lots of miticides when we're treating our bees for varroa and all the different things that can kind of go wrong in a beehive. So you have a heightened risk of being exposed to those organic acids like oxalic or formic. They can be pretty I want to say caustic, or pretty, they can be a pretty, what word am I looking for? Not aggressive. They can, yes, I mean, they're very, very toxic. I was thinking more like harsh. They can be extremely, yes, there you go, thank you. They're very harsh, not only on obviously your skin if you touch them, but just breathing in the fumes that come from them obviously can cause a pretty rough reaction. So watch out for that. That's why I have our inhalation of fumes from your smoker, treatments, and paint. So the treatments I just talked about, those fumes coming off of that, I don't know if you all have ever used formic, but it always smells like the world's strongest vinegar if you do happen to catch a whiff of it, and it will burn. The longer you continue to inhale that, it's not only going to burn your respiratory tract, but if it gets too strong, close to your face, it could burn your eyes. So be aware that it's not anything to really fool with. You don't want to be that that person who's got a sore throat because you didn't get the proper protection while you were trying to get your treatments done. I put smoker fumes on there too, because make sure you're watching what you're burning in your smoker. We want to be using obviously something that produces a nice white smoke. So the more complex sort of the fuel that you're using, you might generate some byproducts that you don't like. So I've seen a couple people say that maybe blue jeans and stuff like that. That's got a lot of dye in it, so that's gonna, when that burns up, it's gonna produce a lot of byproducts that you don't really want for yourself. You definitely don't want for your bees. So I try to endorse use natural. I use cedar chips, cotton scraps that haven't had any dye applied to them, stuff like that. We want to be as gentle as we can on our bees. And then cleaning agents, obviously we all like to clean up our tools. Cleaning your tools can be really difficult, especially with Propolis. So you're exposing yourself to typically, and what I do is I use a pretty high grade alcohol to clean my tools, and that can be pretty rough on your skin. So watch that as well. And then cleaning your extracting equipment. Obviously we want to make sure that we're getting the equipment not only clean, but we're not obviously encumbering ourselves by exposing ourselves to anything too harsh while we're doing that. So how are we going to mitigate some of these chemical hazards? So elimination, use IPM, so integrated pest management. The reason this is on elimination is because you can completely eliminate having to expose yourself to chemicals by using an integrated pest management system and employing like a brood break or splitting your bees or doing something like caging your queen. Anything to get that brood break or that mite knockdown that you're looking for without using a chemical. And so that's typically through, basically splitting your bees, caging your queen, something to obviously get that mite disruption that we're looking for. You don't necessarily have to kill the mites, right? You just have to get them to stop breathing for a little bit, and that kind of will reset the clock. So using that as one of your tools, it'll reduce the amount of times you have to use a chemical. So I think that's a good thing. Substitution, use milder treatments for bees and equipment. So anytime that you can use one of those milder treatments, like using oxalic instead of formic, if you can, is obviously going to be better for you. I think that's all I'm going to say on that one. Engineering, so ventilation for treating your equipment and cleaning your tools. So depending upon the way that you treat your equipment and how you clean your tools, you might need some local exhaust ventilation or have some sort of exhaust system. We personally in our area, we do like a lot of char and stain where we burn the wood and then use like a sealing oil on it. That burning process, obviously, it produces some sort of byproduct of fume or smoke, right? So we have to be sort of careful about doing that. Also, I put paint on there. Obviously, when you paint your boxes, we like to let them dry and cure, right? But that curing process actually off gases. They're called VOCs, and exposure to those over long periods can, they can have some pretty detrimental effects on humans, much less bees. So it's important that we let our paint dry, and not only let it dry, but let it dry somewhere that it can actually ventilate properly. Because the last thing you want to do is be painting in an enclosed space and then get lightheaded, right? Administrative, how can we, change our behaviors, or what can we do to improve our process that'll help us mitigate that risk? Follow your safety labels. Always look at your safety labels when you're going to be using a treatment to make sure that you have the proper, protective gear. Do you have the goggles? Do you have the gloves? Do you have the respirator? Make sure that you're not, storing it improperly, that type of stuff. So make sure that we're looking at those labels. And then our PPE for chemical hazards classic, we need to, you gotta have a good respirator depending upon the type of hazard that you're, chemical that you're working with. So make sure that you're looking at that guidance. For us, typically as beekeepers, we use a lot of organic acid treatments. So you're probably going to want to get a respirator that has organic acid vapor cartridges, the cartridge respirators, because those are going to protect you from the organic vapor and the particles. If you just wear a regular respirator, that's just going to protect you from particles. It's not going to stop the vapor. So if you do happen to breathe in, the particles will be stopped, but all those vapors are going to come through a traditional filtering base piece where it doesn't have the little canister attachment. So make sure that you're getting one of those canister attachment respirators or cartridge attachment respirators for when you're using those organic acids or anything hazardous like that. Make sure we're looking, like I said, look at those safety labels for what it's rated for. And then I said gloves and goggles because depending upon what you're using, we do an oxalic acid dribble sometimes to make sure we're wearing our gloves because oxalic acid can go through your skin and it actually can cause some pretty damaging effects on the body too, stuff like that. Goggles, obviously we know getting chemicals in our eyes are typically not a good thing. So make sure if you are doing something that involves, like I said, we do a dribble, so goggles are kind of important because if you do accidentally splash, the last place I want that oxalic acid is in my eyes. I don't want it on my skin, but I'd rather have it on my hand that I can quickly wash than going into my eye, right? So, just a sip, sorry, it's starting to go dry. Any questions so far?
How often do you have to change the respirator filter thing?
The filters? I think they typically say on the side, like, once opened and exposed, I think you're typically, so it's kind of either until it's loaded or there's a time. So I would say the time's probably a year, if I had to bet. And then the other thing, like I said, the other one is like the loading. So you could get a brand new respirator and work it really hard, and it would fully load in a couple days if you really worked it and you were really exposing it. But if you aren't, I would say it's probably good for at least a year. It just depends. I think a lot of those use like a carbon, like a classic carbon filter, and those do degrade after about a year, especially because unless you have them in a nice sealed container, they basically are passively filtering almost all the time once they're opened. All right. All right, this is my last category. I'm sorry I bored you all to death. This is psychological hazards. So I just put this one in as sort of like a bonus category because it's just little things that I've noticed that I think all of us deal with, but it's also why I think our clubs are really important. So burnout and mental fatigue from constant hive management and loss, financial stresses from hive losses, poor honey yields or equipment costs, and then just generalized stress from queen failure, colony collapse, or disease. I think on the next slide, yeah, okay. So this one sticks because I can't really give you anything. I can't put I can't put like some sort of emotional bulletproof vest on your brain, right? I really wish we had that type of thing, but I can't give you any way to substitute that out. Like I said, we can't take these out of beekeeping. There's not really anything to substitute here, not that I can think of. Using, what was I gonna say? Maybe using better stock bees, higher survivorship, but that wasn't really what I was going for. So it's kind of just stuck on the administrative. We have to change us about this one. We have to change the way that we're thinking, the way that we're behaving. So we need to set realistic goals. You know, I'm a classic overachiever, right? I'll set the bar up here and then I'll end up landing here and being mad about it. I set myself up for failure because I kind of put the expectations way too high. Beekeeping is something you can, I think, really, really punish yourself with in that regard. So make sure we're kind of being gentle on ourselves when we set those expectations. This is what I was saying just a second ago, attend beekeeper clubs and events for support community. That's why I think our clubs and events are really, really important. You get to talk to other beekeepers who might be going through the same exact thing you're going through that year. And it just gives you that sense of community, camaraderie, just someone else to listen to and then, obviously have sort of a connection with. And then maintain our work and life balance. It's really easy to get a lot of bees and work yourself to death. I've also found they can take up a lot of your time. You can guilt yourself about it. So just make sure you're also taking care of yourself. Taking care of these is hard work. And in almost every regard I found, it's intellectually challenging. It's physically challenging. So make sure we're taking time for ourselves and not overcommitting in the bee yard, I guess. Is it worth the risk? I like to think so. So this was just my last slide. Like I said, got a couple different categories we're batting against in the bee yard, and those aren't even all of them. Those are just like kind of really generalized categories. We could go real down into the weeds if we wanted to. I'd keep you here all night, and all of you would be asleep. But I wanted to keep it kind of general and brief, just based on what I've had to deal with. So ongoing safety awareness and innovation. My whole bucket was, just something that somebody told me about. I encourage all of you to just be creative in the bee yard. Do whatever you think is going to keep you safe, even if it seems ridiculous. I've done the weirdest, silliest things just because I wanted that swarm and I wasn't willing to give up on it. I didn't have a ladder that I was willing to get back on. I didn't have a pole bucket long enough, but I still found a way. It's always something, right? So you gotta, I'm encouraging you, like I said, to be aware of your safety, but don't give up without a fight, sort of thing. So make sure you're thinking of just creative ideas and try it. If it works, it's awesome. If it doesn't, well, at least you didn't get hurt. Like some of us almost did. So any questions? I know it's just a lot of preaching safety action. No? Or I will be here.
I think it's good reminders, because you get so focused on, what you plan to go do that day, and then it's always takes an hour longer than you planned, and,
Always.
see something else in the thing, so I think these are all really good reminders, because sometimes you're not thinking that you're sticking to the task at hand.
Oh, and as a new beekeeper, I was just absolutely full steam ahead. You were not going to tell me no. I did not care about my safety, and I had almost ate it like twice. Now I'm like 3 times and I'm out. So I probably need to just, like I said, adhere to my own rules and encourage you all to do the same. So like I said, I'll be here. If you have any questions, I will try to give you as much safety advice as I can. But thank you so much for entertaining me. There were my references, so I didn't make it.
Lots of references. If you guys want to check out any of the references there later, I'm sure those are incredibly riveting reads. How many of you guys ever had to take CBLs for work, like continued learning or like little classes? Well, you just took one for beekeeping. Congratulations, y'all passed. Thank you. Really, like Amy said, a lot of that stuff that we don't always think about that we probably should more often than not. So thanks for keeping it present in our minds. We appreciate it. Maybe. All right, and I'll keep this meeting moving right along. If anybody wanted 50/50 tickets that didn't get them, please go get them there because I think she still has some. And there's still some water over there, so if you guys are thirsty. But we'll pop through this business here really quick. We'll start with our old business as usual. Make sure you guys are registered. It is April, so everyone should be registered for 2025 by now. But if you're not, make sure that you are. You can do it online, so you don't have to have any help. You can do it over here with Amy. But if you're not registered, you got pointed out. You can do that, and then also make sure you go online and register for the newsletter because you won't be able to get that resource if you don't do that part as well. And if you're not sure how that part works, yell at me or yell at any of us. We can kind of share those instructions with you. Oh, and if you are registered or think you're registered and you're not seeing the newsletter, also let us know. Check your spam and your junk because those go out. I sent a reminder out, I think, it was like a week ago. It was less than a week ago. It was like 4 or 5 days ago. 2 to 5 days ago, right before the weekend. It was like Thursday, I think, last Thursday is when we sent it out. So if you didn't get an email from us last Thursday and you think you should be getting emails from us, please let me know. Make sure to update your hives. This is the time of the year where we're all checking on our hives and finding what we have, what we don't have, and everything in between. Make sure your registrations are up to date. If you need inspections, get a hold of this guy right here. That's his contact information. You can give him a call. He can come out and check things out for you. But if you were to have a bear attack, anything like that, you want to make sure that you have your accurate amount of hives. We're going to be building up very soon, so that's something to consider. Welcome, beginners. Is there anyone that attended the beginner class in here? Woo! Congrats! Thank you guys for coming back. I hope you had fun. That was literally just last week, so I'm glad that you decided that it was fun enough to come back like 4 days later. That's awesome. We're really, really glad to have you. We had 84 people register for that class. It's the biggest beginner class that we have ever had. It was amazing to see that many people excited about learning new things here in the Mon County Center. And I hope that we did it justice. I hope folks got to learn. We still have an open apiary day that we'll be planning, but we don't have that planned yet. So that's another portion of that beginner class that we tend to offer, but we haven't done that because there's still a lot of planning that goes into that, and it's not the right time for bees or full bees just yet. No Hives Left Behind. That was the conference that was just this past weekend, hosted by our sister club, the Marion County Beekeepers Association. Charlie, can you stand up and show us about your shirt? I know you're wearing it again. Yeah, there we go. Woo! Do you want to give us a quick rundown of the conference since you're standing up? It was pretty good. All right. How about you?
We had like over 200.
Oh, there were over 200
The
attendees.
speakers were great.
David Tarpey was awesome. Jake the Bee Man was awesome. Dr. Ferrone, I was going to butcher her name. I just had to shoot.
Some of their comments were that they were from Dr. Ferrone and one of the others said that everything seemed organized with the speakers. They didn't jump from one subject to the next. They were all kind of smoothly.
Yes, it was a very well organized event. Very like familial. It felt like it was very like everybody got to talk and have camaraderie. It was very fun. The food was fantastic. Yes, at Lanny's. It was really a great weekend. If you weren't there, you missed out. There will be more conferences, but there won't be any more exactly like that one. So it was a great weekend. Thank you guys. That's it on my old business. Does anyone have anything that I didn't put that we did in the last month? No? On to new business. Amy, it's your turn.
First off, back on new business, I wanted to, point out that at the conference down in Fairmont, we had, 4 people from our club pass the, first step of the apprentice, and that would be Mike and Christian and Paxton and Eileen Harvey, who's not here. And then Deb Bain was finally recognized with her official plaque for Master Beekeeper that they never got her when she passed it 3 years ago. Really proud of everybody. It's fantastic, and it's a great showing from Mon County. Well, so that's great. It's a really big deal, so I'm really proud of her.
It is, if anybody's considering the Master Beekeeper testing, we've been working on the conferences for a bunch of years. We haven't really had the opportunity to take the test quite yet until this year. But it was a really, really cool opportunity to kind of test our skills, and what we've learned as beekeepers so far. I've heard that the certified test is much harder, so I'll probably have to study a lot harder for that. But so far so good. We did pass, so that was good. But it was a lot of fun. And congrats to Debbie, she's all the way up to master. So we have a master in our midst. Woo!
And then as far as the treasurer's report, so we pulled in quite a nice sum of income from the beginner class, and, we'll put that towards our, different, things we're gonna provide this year, treatments and doing some construction little projects for the hive, and we're expanding our library of classes that can be borrowed. And speaking of borrowing, I know this is not true, but just see where the money is. We have a FLIR camera. We have a refractometer. I just purchased a digital refractometer for the club. We have our vaporizer and batteries.
We have a honey extractor, we have an observation hive, we have a bunch of stuff that you guys can borrow if you need.
Yeah, so, you keep those things in mind as well. If you're beginning your beekeeping process, help you along the way.
And if there's stuff that we don't have that you wish we had.
Let me know. I'm happy to spend your money. And then you can see, the expenses that we've had as well. So our ending balance is pretty high right now. So, yeah.
Well, that big new beekeeper class.
Yeah. That was huge.
Yes, it was a huge new beekeeper class. We've never had one quite that big. And we plan to appreciate those folks with the programs that we support this year. I know at some point we'll end up probably helping the WVU beekeepers again with some things. I know we probably will get some stuff for our own club apiary. We have that we have to build back up again this year.
We have Bee City USA Cleanup Day coming up. So there are different things, coming up. But we appreciate all of you and all your efforts in helping make the club a success.
And I didn't put this next slide here, but if you have ideas, we can always use them. We have committees that put together the meetings that we have, but also the events that we have outside of these actual meetings. So like the Bee City USA Day and things like that. And those folks can always use extra help helping us spend these funds and do things for each other and for our community.
And I think it's okay to repeat some of those things because now we have 80 plus new members. So, whether it be swarm traps or pollen feeders or, whatever, there's no harm in repeating things. And then, everybody can be available to the new beekeepers and support them. So that's all I have.
Any questions? Yes.
I like that stand that, beekeeper man presented.
Yeah, I sent the dimensions to Linda, and we're already thinking.
Yes, we may be doing that for one of our workshops. Sometimes we'll make products for workshops, things like that. So we use a lot of these funds for that as well. To try to bring as much value to our members as we can. Deb, do you have a state report? The conference just happened.
Just the conference we just had, and we got another one coming up in September, because everyone can make it. And in Lewisburg,
Yes.
at what the state fair is.
It's at the state fairgrounds in Lewisburg. I don't think I should have put the slide on here, I just didn't, because it was last minute trying to, that just happened, they just announced that at the spring conference. So I didn't have that done in time, but, that is up and able to be registered for, I believe registration is $65. It's down in Lewisburg, it should be a really, really nice event. It's in the planning stages, but I think they've got 4 or 5 speakers already, coming, as well as 5 or 6 vendors that have said that they were gonna come. So it's gonna be a pretty big event, a lot of people gonna be there, hopefully, and a lot of nice food, a lot of nice camaraderie. So please sign up. If you're in the beginner's class, it's a free event for you. At some point, the state will probably send out information on how to register as a beginner, but I don't know that information.
What about the Honey Festival? Do you know anything about it?
The West Virginia State Honey Festival in Parkersburg. I have not heard anything about it yet. That is run by the Wood County Parks and Rec. So normally how that works is they reach out to the state, and then the state tells everybody, or one of the local groups down there, and then they tell everybody. But I haven't seen anything about it yet. Amy might have.
I do have dates. Lisa had told me this weekend that it's going to be on August 22nd to 23rd. But remember, they tore down the building. It will probably not be ready, and so it will all be outdoors. Intense.
We will not be a show.
It will not be a
Way to sell it. It's gonna be a great event. The honey show is always gonna be really fun. But yeah, they did tear down the building and we are in there in the process of revamping that park. It just won't be revamped by. Yeah.
Cooler outside.
That building was pretty hot inside, so it could work out really, really well. Either way, we're gonna have it. It'll be, what dates did you say?
22nd, 23rd of August.
August 22nd, 23rd, and I will add that to our calendar before I send out this month's newsletter.
Next one, the Long County Fair.
Is it again?
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
The second year in a row. All right, well, we'll probably still do what we did last year and have a booth here at the Mon County Fair and also have a booth at the Honey Festival, because we have folks that don't do one or the other. So we're always looking for volunteers for booths. If you guys sell honey or if you just want to come out and talk to people about bees, look at our calendar. I'll bring it up every single month, all these events that we're doing. We can always use people to come out. I'm going to be talking about one of those events here in just a minute that we have coming up very soon. Swarms and removals. Elisa's not here this evening, but if you would like to get on the list, I'll put a sheet out before I leave. Let me know. We have a list where we contact folks who are interested in getting swarms and removals. You can also sign up through the state. But a lot of times people will message our Facebook page and say, hey, there's a swarm here, there's a swarm there. So if they do that, we try to share those with our members as often as we can, especially if they're in their local area. So let me know if you want to get on the swarm or removal list. We're having a vendor showcase on Sunday next week. We're very excited for the showcase. We have a lot of vendors coming, so please come out and support our vendors and support each other. It should be a fun day. If you didn't register, go online and register. It's on our website. It's just one of our pages there. It's free. You don't have to pay anything to come. The vendors take care of all of that. But we are having folks register because oftentimes folks will give us door prizes. So if you register in advance, we'll sign up for the door prizes. If you don't register in advance, you don't get door prizes, but you can still come. And also, if you see any of the places on there that you'd like to pre-order from, a lot of those businesses will get pre-orders. So if you call them in advance and say, hey, I want this, this, and this, can you bring it with me? Bring it with you this weekend, they will most of the time. All right, new beekeepers need mentors. That's something that I'm constantly told and something that we're always trying to help folks with. So the question is, how can you help? What I'm going to do is if there are any new beekeepers here this evening who are looking for mentors, I'm going to put out something as well so that you guys can make a list. I just want you to put your name, phone number, and your general location. You don't have to put your exact address, but if there's like a general location you can give us, then I'm going to share that with our members and see if I can find some folks that are close to you in your general locations to kind of hook you up with. as far as mentorships are concerned. It's always better with two sets of hands in the AV area, right, Christian? Club picnic. At the July club meeting, we always have or generally have our club picnic. That's what we've done the last few years, so I think we'll probably continue to do that. How it's been handled in the past is that the club provides the entrees, the members provide the sides, and the drinks and the desserts, which are the sides technically. But the reason I bring this up now is so that I can start making sure that I have what we need here. So what do you guys want to eat? Yeah, what do you want to eat? If I'm gonna buy the entrees, what do you want? Steaks, all right. One for steak.
I still think the fried chicken and Pete brings us and the hot dogs.
We can do that. Is everyone okay with fried chicken and hot dogs, or do we have any other suggestions? I'm definitely open to suggestions. I don't mind. Yeah. All right, fried chicken and hot dogs. Any opposed? You're here. All right. We've been saying we're going to bring this up forever, so we're finally getting to it. We're going to finally take a vote on Article 3, Section 2 of our membership. We talked about this a few different times. Currently, the officers for the club are elected annually by the membership of the association, and individuals are elected as officers are limited to 4 consecutive one-year terms. That means each of us have 4 one-year terms that we serve, and then we're not allowed to serve any more terms as in that office. Are we content with keeping that as is, or would we like to change that? I just need a vote in favor of keeping it, or if we want to change it, I need a suggestion. Sure. We've had a few meetings about this. It's been brought up a few different times. The reason we were considering changing it is because right now we have 3 officers who are all leaving at the same time. We have 1 officer who is starting her first year this year, and we want to make sure that for continuity of the club, that we make sure that we're not leaving anybody stranded without information. Not that any of us are planning on dropping the mic and running, right? But I'm sure that, or I know for a fact that when we first started, it wasn't necessarily super easy for all of us coming in at the same time to grab the reins and figure things out. We had to make a lot of changes and do a lot of random stuff. So we want to make that easier on folks going forward. Maybe not even just this next group, but the group after that, or the group after that, you know. So if we think that this is a good setup, I'm happy to leave it as is if you guys want to, but if you think we should change it, I'm happy to take suggestions for changing it.
Wasn't there discussion of the shuffling of the offices and then your 4 years of reset?
So there was discussion about whether or not officers could take other positions, which they can. There's nothing anywhere that states that Amy couldn't be elected as the president and I couldn't be elected as the treasurer, and we could just shuffle planes.
So wouldn't that get rid of everybody that wants and there's the shuffle?
Not necessarily, because nobody wants to shuffle. Nobody wants to continue to hold a position. So I would like to propose possibly staggering 2 positions. So then 4 people are, 3 people aren't going off. It maybe 2 stay and 2 go off. And that way, you always have some consistency with the new group coming on and the 2 people coming on.
So what we've had at other meetings, we put in, this is like notes from past meetings. Some of the ideas that were put forward was mentioning new officers to put in the bylaws. 1 current officer of 4 years to stay on another year, particularly requesting current officers to switch to a different officer position. Adding language to bylaws that would only allow 2 officers to step off board at a time, with language to state contingency that the third officer would stay on to mentor such as abating hour officers, or would be a new interim office. And also another one was allowing an officer to extend their tenure if there were no volunteers for a specific office. So those were the ideas that had already been there.
Anybody hear that? Okay,
And what I did staggering,
staggering. So it would be like 2 and 2.
I think 2 and 2 work best because they have an option after 3 years to leave, then you're back to that same situation.
Right. So keep things as they are, but stagger the individuals is what we're saying. So how do we go about staggering the individuals? You could either shorten somebody's term or elongate somebody's term. That's the simplest way to do it, right? So in theory, we could, I mean, either way.
The best thing is not to have the secretary and the president go off at the same time, because the secretary and the president usually are the ones, knowledgeable about what's going on.
Sure.
Or, bring in a new president and secretary. The treasurer has, knows what's going on, but it's just, I think the state's right to do that, they did until COVID and all that. To have the president and secretary not go off at the same time. For continuity.
One group I'm in, it's for one of the high schools, but the president of the boosters can only do 2 years. Everybody else is actually indefinite, like, as long as they want to rerun, they can have that position. And the precedent is 2 years. And then if they step back for a year, they could come back. But the president only serves 2 years.
Which we could, I
Just throwing it
mean,
out
yeah, I mean, we could absolutely do that.
What they usually do is they flip flop. The vice president ends up being the president, and
Every,
then they flip back after 2 years.
right,
If they still have kids.
right.
It's worked out well.
And it sounds like it would because the folks who are probably doing those offices are the ones that want to be doing them, so they take the other offices and kind of, which is what happens in a lot of organizations. As the president, I don't know how much of a say I get to have, right? I just am kind of a facilitator. So, I don't know what the correct solution is. I don't know that there really is a correct solution. I think whatever we do will probably work out okay. But I think it is smart to try and stagger things just to try to do something to kind of alleviate 3 people leaving or 4 people leaving and not having those minds there at some point or other. So then the simplest thing would be to adjust the term limit of one office for, would it be 1 year or 2 years? 2.
Allowing an officer to extend tenure for 1 year.
It would either be 1 current officer or 1 new officer extending their tenure or shortening the tenure.
If you shorten, you'd be on track with Nancy. If you extend, then you're.
Right. Well, so that's what I was thinking. So like one of the incoming officers, we would say, okay, you're only an officer for 3 years instead of 4. Or 3 consecutive 1-year terms. You only have the option for 3 consecutive 1-year terms instead of 4. That way it lines up. It would probably be the incoming president.
That's my vote.
Because then that lines the incoming president up with Nancy, with the secretary. And then the other 2 offices are already in line.
But you wouldn't want the president and the secretary both leaving at the same time, that's what Nancy was talking about.
Oh, you don't want that, is what you're saying. So you want the president and the treasurer at the same time, and the vice president and the secretary
Either way, I mean, just don't want the president and secretary.
at the same time? Okay. So then the incoming treasurer, we would shorten 3 consecutive one-year terms for the next incoming treasurer. That way the treasurer and the secretary are on the same schedule, and the vice president,
Don't you have the vice president and president staggered?
they would, sure. So the incoming.
And then the staggered, then the new president would get assistance from the vice president. That would be your like mentor buffer.
Okay, so then we would stagger the incoming vice president with Nancy, with our current secretary. And then that will put our president and our treasurer staggered together. Yes?
That's what I'm thinking.
Does that make sense to anyone? You have to line up,
You
right?
just have to make sure you initial that or this one time.
This one time, yes. Yeah, so we would have to write it in that it would just be this one time, that it would be reduced with 3 consecutive one-year terms for the vice president. Any thoughts? Any other thoughts? Should we do that? Shouldn't we do that? I gotta get motions to do anything, right? No?
I move we stagger. And we stagger the way that Nancy talked about having the president and the secretary not being together.
Okay, so to do that, we would, I think the only way is to do the one-year term. Do you have something else? Okay, so then we're gonna shorten the incoming vice president's term to 3 consecutive one-year terms. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're done, okay. Those are our current officers, thank you guys so much. Oh, I don't know why that was painful, but it was.
Nobody wanted to get rid of you, I guess, so that's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could stay forever, really. But I want new, fresh ideas, what?
We'll vote for that.
Right. You might have a little bit of opposition. No, I'm not going anywhere. I just think that fresh ideas are important. So I'm gonna, when my tenure is up here, I'm gonna step onto our committees and work on our committees a little more prominently. But you guys gotta get tired of hearing my voice week after month after year, my gosh. Well, I appreciate that. How are you guys' hives doing? One down? Have we had a lot of loss? Yeah. If I show my hands, have anyone lost more than 50%? That's good.
I lost 50% already.
But that's still 50%. That still hurts. It was a big year for loss for everybody. I don't like to say that it's nice to hear it, but it's nice to hear it because it makes it feel less like it was your own personal fault, if that makes sense. When you're standing in your apiary among all your losses, you're just like, dang. But when you get to talk to other people, it's just better. Right? Yeah. 1.7 million hives lost. Yeah. That's crazy. Everyone who's done inspections building up okay? Building up okay. Now that things are starting to build up again.
Building up okay. This is gone back in January, because there's nice days when everybody was posting, oh, my bees are out flying. Ours were out, we're looking off, no activity, well, they know. And then when the weather finally woke up here a couple, 3 weeks ago, Lloyd came in and he says, the bees are out flying. I said, whose bees? We don't have any bees. He said, oh, yeah, we do. And so then he started checking them, and they're busted.
Good.
Because he even told me last week, he said, better order, because we gotta split these hives. I said, We can't split these times now, we don't have a queen, and they can't make a queen right now yet, you know,
Not quite yet.
but he said, oh, that's right. You know.
But better to be thinking about the equipment now than thinking about it later.
I like the
After the
old.
registration.
Mark Padillion has queens up in Hickory, PA.
Mark Padillion has
He came from
queens.
Wilbanks down in Georgia. So he's got queens available as of today.
As of today. That's really good information. That's, if anyone's in here, Mark Padillion up and
Needs
PA
to go 40.
has 40 queens.
No,
If anybody, $40, not 40 queens. I don't know how much queens he's got. But they're $40. If you want to get in touch, it's Padillion Apiary, right?
Padillion's Honey Farm.
Or Padillion's Honey Farm is what it is. I think you can find him on Facebook. But if you're in need of a queen, apparently he's got some. Thank you for that information.
There's a lot of mailing, it's not versus being catalog or shipping, things like that.
Okay.
It's got nice shops.
Okay. Also has a nice shop up there if you guys need some equipment. Good information.
Not the commercial, but the two hives I had, the one that didn't make it was a wooden hive.
Mhm.
And two years ago, I bought one that ate the bay, plastic.
Yeah.
That's the one that survived. And doing so much, just doing great, so.
You know, it's funny, we saw Applemay at the conference, those folks were there, and, that morning, it was real nice, I almost didn't wanna go to the conference, Saturday morning, it was so nice, I just wanted to get my hives. But I took a video, I have 3 hives right in a row, one of them has an Applemay bottom board, the other 2 are just regular wood bottom boards, and the one with the Applemay bottom board, the bees were just going, the other 2, not as much.
So I ordered another.
Yeah, they're real nice, I like them, I like those bottom boards.
I like the fact that they hatched or latched together,
Mhm.
and the bears got into it a couple of years ago. Rode it down over the hill, and a little chip in the corner was all.
And that's it.
Well, sure. So, like that. That's a good commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah, they latched tight.
All right, everybody else's bees doing all right? Anybody else got some bee stories for the year?
I took some second graders to the hive today.
Did you?
Yeah, we didn't take the top cover or the inner cover off, we just peeked. And we filled their water dish and they had eaten their sugar. We did the mountain sugar on the newspaper.
Yeah.
And they had, we saw where they had eaten, they were out snacking on it. And they did their live from the hive video and answered all the questions.
That's so cool. Miss Davis, I wish I would have had you as a teacher. Miss Davis, for those of you guys that don't know, heads up our BIT program, our beauty room training program, and she takes her kids out to the hive at her school, and gets to teach them there right at the hives in a way that I wish I would have been able to experience when I was that age. I'm so jealous. Those kids are so fortunate. That's so cool.
And I had one little feisty one that kept one. She brought it up in class and then she had to bring it up for the video that she says, do you know what they do with that queen when they don't want her? Roll her up in a ball. And she just kept really, okay, so you can't have more than one queen.
Right in the ball. Oh man, that's funny. I'm glad the hives do it well.
I just want everybody to get out and see those red buds blooming, because they're gonna be blooming like next.
They are, well, they're already starting, you can see them now if you
That's
look.
my
when
favorite
you're driving.
tree
The red
for
bud
spring.
blooms, it is beautiful, it really is. Now's the time to see it. Blooms.
Yeah, but you know how we have to
Yeah.
put that in the law for the masters? So like the white ones now, those are they're pears.
Raptor pears.
Raptor.
Yeah.
So what else is out there?
Well, okay, let's talk for a minute about blooms. Her question was, what other blooms are we seeing right now? Which is kind of important, right, for beekeepers to know what we're seeing bloom. Maple, yeah, maple's big right now. Are they? Willow? What are you gonna say?
Hey, I got a story to tell you.
Oh, all right, come on.
This goes along with my presentation.
Okay,
Over in Preston, I got a buddy, he never wears nothing. And
like no clothes?
when he does his bees, he never puts nothing on.
Okay.
Just a short sleeve and he always getting stung. I
There
said,
might
Mel,
be
you can at least have a
correlation.
veil on.
Huh?
But back in February, one of them windstorms, we had probably 6 inches of snow, he had a hive blow over. So he's out there the next day, setting it back up, and it was raining before it goes in, went anyway. And he got stung several times. And apparently one got underneath his coat and crawled up, and he didn't feel it go up his neck and got in his ear. And his wife tried to get it out, but she broke it in half. So he had to go to the butcher's room and get it surgically taken out. And this was in February. But the hive made it.
That is the one, not the one, that is one emergency visit I told him.
But he never wears nothing.
No.
I don't wear
I always
anything.
think about my eyes in the apiary because they say that bees think your eyes are like entrances. That's why they go for them. So I always get worried about always like squinting in the apiary.
Maybe he'll wear earmuffs.
Maybe. That's funny.
So if we've got some honey on our frames right now, should we still feed?
If we've got some honey on our frames right now, she said, if we've got honey on our frames right now, should we still feed them?
And so much.
So yeah, this time of year, my experience is if you feed them and they eat it, it's because they want it. And if you feed them and they don't take it, it's because there's something better. Does anybody else have better experience in that? Yeah, I mean, like sometimes we'll have sugar water out there, like you'll think that because you don't always know, like a lot of times you'll check the frames, but early in the spring it'll just be one box, you're trying to get them to build up, so you put sugar water on there or whatever, and they just stop taking it. But I think that's because nectar is better, I mean, that's what they prefer, so most of the time they'll go for that if they have it available. So in theory, you could put a jar of feed on them and see, you know, it's good to be that time.
Feeding is tricky this time of year. It's a little too cold for liquid, depending on how you do it. And it never hurts to throw a sugar patty or fondant, whatever you got. You gotta be careful with pollen patties, because they're already building up, so if they pollen patties, you'll get a lot of these.
What would you say about your swarm dates? Remembering last year, do you remember when they first?
I got a swarm on my birthday, April 15th last year. It's too cold this week, so it'll be next week.
Yeah.
Minute that sun's out.
Watch the skies next week, that's it. If the weather was a little warmer, it probably would be right now, but they'll be stuck inside.
Below 30, 38.
Yeah, next week.
Mhm. Make sure you got your swarm traps out, make sure you got your extra boxes, extra frames. That's all I've got. Looking forward, I did not update this calendar, so I'm gonna move from here to our website to the calendar, because I updated that one. Did it say that?
I'm asking.
Oh. Maybe.
Okay.
Oh, is it? Perfect. This is on our events page on our website, by the way, you guys can check this out anytime. There's a full calendar. There's our meeting that's tonight, vendor showcase on the 6th. There's a pollinator plant sale here on the 12th. You guys are welcome to come out. We'll be here, we'll have a booth here. Just with educational materials, the pollinator plant sale will be happening through the Rotary, but if you want some pollinator plants, that'd be a great place to get them. Another meeting on May 6th. That meeting is our Being a Beekeeper workshop. We're going to be talking all about being a beekeeper, what that means as far as selling honey or getting inspected or labeling requirements, things like that. All of the things that we don't normally get to talk about, we're going to try to cover those in May. Then June 3rd is our next meeting. I don't remember what topic of that is. Oh yeah, it's our treatment workshop. Yeah. It's our treatment workshop. We'll be talking about all the different kinds of row treatment, how to apply them. We'll have copies of the Honeybee Health Coalition guide, so if you guys have questions, we can go through that with you.
Samples of those too, so you can see what they look like if you've never ever handled those?
Yes, yeah, we'll have samples of lots of the different kinds of treatments you can get some hands on. Treatment can be a little scary if you've not done it before, it can seem a little scary. So it's nice to get some hands-on experience with that. And then June 7th is our annual pollinator triangle upkeep day. Shauna, you're here, do you want to talk about that real quick?
Oh, well, what is it, the third year? Fourth?
It's our 4th year.
Our fourth year doing
We've done it since, yeah, this is our 4th year.
Yeah, all right,
That's
3
crazy.
years with Bee City. So, yeah, so this will be our annual voluntary thing that we do to maintain the designation. You have to do outreach and either maintain pollinator habitat, and we want to do a little maybe workshop afterward.
Yes, yeah.
Build some pollinator hotels or something.
Yeah, but we'll be doing that over at,
Yeah, I'll get one
The
of the
park.
pavilions.
Yep.
So.
So our plan is to clean up the pollinator triangle as we do every year. Then we'll be moving over to another pollinator spot within the park, within the city park that we've commandeered and made beautiful. And then from there, we'll go to one of the pavilions and host a pollinator hotel workshop where members of the community and members of the organization come out and make pollinator hotels that we can then put on some of our gardens and the folks can take home. It'll be a fun event, and then again, like Shauna mentioned, it helps us keep our Bee City USA designation, which is a really, really cool designation that we get to have that helps show our support for pollinators.
And it usually doesn't take us very long because the triangle's done it 4 years now, so it's just putting in mulch and.
Yes, yeah, we'll probably be there from 10 until noon, and then we'll probably go get lunch after. It tends to be fun.
The first year was kind of wicked, trying to get all the shrubs.
Yeah, the first year was rough. You guys are lucky if you didn't come to that, you missed that one. Then our monthly meeting in July is our club picnic. And then I have all the rest of the club meetings listed in here, but I don't need to go through those. It's the first Tuesday of every month. Yeah, door prizes. All right, let's do some door prizes.
So talking about swarms, first one. So what this is, it's a little invention I picked up at the conference this year in Kentucky. And what it allows you to do is get a paint pole, broomstick, and it's threaded, and you put a drawn cone, on the end of your broomstick here, there's a little keyhole, and then you can just lift your frame up, which they will crawl onto because they recognize the smells, and it's safer and easier, or you can get a telescoping one. So. that
Really neat little invention to kind of help with your swarm catching.
There's little directions in case you need them, I think.
Daniel, confused.
I can't hear.
Oh, here, I got you. This goes on the end of a pole, so it's like
The threaded plastic.
it holds the top of the frame right there. So it goes on the end of like a paint pole or something, and then you hold your frame in there and you can hold it up to a tree.
Okay.
Nice little swarm capturing device. Somebody's making their million off of it. Is this the winner? The winner is 251. 251. Woohoo! I don't know, hopefully you do. Let us know how well it works.
All right, next we have a beetle trap.
It's about to be that time of year. We got a beetle trap. 256. Woo! Now you better get out there and use it too. Do we have one more? One more.
Another swarm trap.
Another swarm trap. 273. Yeah! All right, and then is this the whole money or just this? Oh, there's $25 here, 50-50. Way to go, guys! For the big money prize, 163. Woo! Way to go! Congratulations! And thank you guys so much for coming out. We appreciate you. If you want to get on any of the lists that I previously mentioned, hang out. I'll be right over here. I'll get you on those lists. If you have any questions or need anything, we'll all be here. You can get with Christian or Paxton or Amy or any of the group of us here. We're happy to chat, but it was a pleasure having you, and we'll see you next month.